Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to react to what Americans could learn from European streets. This is about the sidewalks and everything else. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and follow me on social media, and let's jump right into it.
Every day, millions of Americans walk on streets without a second thought. They walk, ride their bikes, and watch cars pass. But while American streets may look safe, they aren't the gold standard. Across the Atlantic, Europe is home to some of the safest streets in the world, with some countries recording just over a dozen fatalities per million. That's not
117 accidents in the US, comparing with Romania in second place with just 77, and Romania is considered a third world country. That's like double almost the number of accidents in the US in a not such developed country.
That's not an accident. That's engineering. But here's the strange part. Even the most dangerous streets in Europe still outperform many of the so-called normal ones in the United States. So how is that possible? And what makes European streets so much safer than the US's? To answer that, we need to go back to where it all started.
Way
After
back
World
during the
War
Second
II,
World
the
War.
world felt full of promise. In both the US and Europe, car ownership exploded. Families bought their first vehicles and suburbs began to sprawl. It felt like a new era, one where freedom came on four wheels. But that momentum didn't last. In the 1970s, the oil crisis hit hard. In America, gas prices doubled. In Europe, they more than tripled. Suddenly,
Oh,
the dream
that's
of endless
insane.
driving came with a cost no one had planned for. Both sides of the Atlantic faced the same question. Should we keep building around cars or start thinking differently? In the US, the answer was more cars and more highways. But in Europe, the mood changed. People began to wonder, what if streets weren't just for traffic? What if they were for people? After a sharp rise in traffic deaths, especially
Ooh,
among children, some cities reached a breaking point.
bad
In places like
accidents.
the Netherlands, protests broke out. Families took to the streets and demanded safer cities. And slowly, those demands became action. Year after year, Europe began reshaping how its cities worked. And today, the results speak for themselves. European streets are among the safest in the world. In some countries, your chances of dying in traffic are 4 times lower than in the US. But knowing why Europe changed isn't the full story.
That's
To really
crazy.
understand what America could learn, we have to look at how those changes took shape. And no country shows that better than the Netherlands. At first glance, Dutch streets don't look all that different from American ones. But the way they're laid out tells a completely different story. In the US, most roads are built around a simple idea. Let traffic move freely. Lanes are wide and space is treated like safety. But that space actually brings a problem. Without resistance, drivers move faster, even when they don't mean to. In the Netherlands, the goal isn't to make driving easy, it's to make it safe. That starts with layout. In many Dutch cities,
Mhm.
the road is broken into
That's how it
distinct
should be
layers.
everywhere.
Trams run down the center. Car lanes sit on either side. And beyond that, you'll find clearly separated paths for bikes and
Awesome
pedestrians.
city.
Everyone has a place. Everyone knows what to expect.
Architecture.
But there's more happening under the surface. Dutch roads are designed to push back. Lanes are winding and narrower, sometimes as slim as 2.75 meters, just tight enough to force drivers to stay alert. You don't need a flashing sign to slow down. The road does it for you. And in quieter neighborhoods, things shift even more. Streets flatten out, curbs vanish, and cars mix with people walking and biking. These are Woonerfs, living streets, where cars aren't in control, they're just guests. You don't speed through a space like that, because everything about it tells you not to. Still, cars aren't the only threat, because even at slow speeds, the most dangerous moment often happens at the edge of the road. Crossing the street should be safe, but in the US, it often feels like a gamble. Long crossings and no room for error means even a single distracted moment can be deadly. In many cities, it's not
You don't even
uncommon for
try to stop that
pedestrians to be
driver.
struck in crosswalks that are barely
Whoa.
visible. Dutch cities took a
That's
different approach. They
crazy.
made crossing the street unavoidable, not for pedestrians, but for drivers. It starts with elevation. Instead of painting lines on the road, Dutch crosswalks are often slightly raised, not enough to jolt your car, but just enough to catch your attention. And on busy roads, mid-block crossings include pedestrian islands, small protected zones in the middle of the street. If someone can't make it all the way across in one go, they don't have to risk it. They can pause in safety, then continue when it's clear. It's a simple buffer, but one that saves lives. But engineers didn't stop there. Some cities even tested illusion-based crossings, painted in
That's
3D
insane.
perspective to look like floating
Wow,
blocks in the
that
road.
looks
Drivers
awesome.
instinctively slow down, even though the obstacle isn't real. It's psychological design, using what people see to guide what they do. But the most subtle
Seems like a
and perhaps
break in the
most
road.
powerful design isn't for walkers. It's for those on two wheels. Across the US, riding a bike often feels like a risk. And that's not just because of traffic, it's because of how the roads are built. Most American bike lanes are painted onto the road. That's it. No buffer or no protection, especially where it matters most, at intersections.
That's so close
It
for the
forces
lane.
cyclists to ride alongside turning cars, oftentimes turning deadly. Dutch engineers solved this problem decades ago. In the Netherlands, cyclists stay fully separated from cars, even at turns. Instead of merging into traffic, the bike path bends outward slightly, curving around the corner. It's a subtle shift, but a crucial one. It puts cyclists in full view of turning drivers, straight ahead, not hidden in a blind spot. To make this work, engineers added a small traffic island between the bike lane and the turning lane. That one feature gives everyone room to breathe. Drivers slow to make the wider turn. Cyclists follow a direct line. And if they do arrive at the intersection at the same time, they make eye contact. There's no guessing, and no need for split-second decisions. And here's the clever part. It doesn't require more space than a traditional intersection. It just rethinks how that space is used. Across Dutch cities, this layout is the standard. So the question becomes, if this is possible without more space, and it's been proven to work, why doesn't America build this way? Well, part of the answer comes down to the car itself. Because while vehicles have gotten much safer for the people inside them, they've quietly become more dangerous for everyone else. In the US, pedestrian deaths have been rising for over a decade, even as cars get packed with new safety features. But in Europe, that trend didn't happen. So why is that? And why does safety in one place turn into risk in another? To answer that, you have to understand how the entire system fits together. And that's where today's sponsor, Brilliant, comes in. Brilliant isn't just another learning app. It's built in the US, cars have become much safer for the people inside them. They have stronger frames, better seatbelts, and lots of safety features. But while all of that helped drivers and passengers, it made things worse for everyone else. Today, cars are bigger and taller than they used to be. That makes them more dangerous
Most
for
of the
people
people are
walking
using
nearby.
pickups anyways.
Since 2010, pedestrian deaths in the US have gone up by 77%. Over 7,000 people were killed last year
That's
just while
insane.
walking near traffic. In Europe, that didn't happen. Even though more people walk there, far fewer are killed in crashes. One reason is the rules. Since 2005, Europe has required new cars to pass special crash tests made just for pedestrian safety. To meet those rules, car companies had to lower the hoods, round off the front, and use softer materials. These changes make crashes less deadly. And starting in 2022, all new cars in Europe must include automatic emergency braking, which can stop a car before it hits someone. In the US, none of that is required. Big vehicles like SUVs and pickup trucks don't have to follow the same safety rules as regular cars. That's why they're often taller and have flat fronts, both of which are more dangerous in a crash. Europe also makes it harder to own really big vehicles. Gas is more expensive, and some cities charge extra fees or block large vehicles from certain areas entirely.
You
That's
don't
why
have
most
to
people
park
in
them
Europe
anyway.
still drive smaller cars. In fact, only 17% of new cars in Europe are SUVs. In the US, it's more than half. So while the US made cars
What a big
safer for the
difference.
people inside, Europe made choices that kept everyone safer, including the person walking right outside. But even with all these smart design choices, there's still one question left. If the benefits are so clear, why hasn't the US followed the same path?
That's a good question.
The answer has less to do with traffic and more to do with how cities are built. The US and Europe didn't just build different roads, they built entirely different environments. In cities like Barcelona, most buildings were designed before cars even existed. That means homes, schools, and stores are close together.
Not only in
People can
Barcelona,
walk to what they
everywhere in
need in
Europe.
just a few minutes. But in many US cities, neighborhoods are spread out. Roads are wide, blocks are long, and daily life is built around the car. Take Phoenix and Barcelona. Both have about 1.6 million people, but Phoenix takes up 5 times more space. That extra space makes walking or biking much harder, especially when stores and services are miles apart. But Barcelona didn't just rely on density. In 2014, the city introduced superblocks. Each one is made up of 9 city blocks. Cars must drive around the outside, not through the middle. Inside, speed limits are lowered to walking speed, and parking is replaced with spaces for markets, games, and public life. In one test zone, pedestrian space jumped from 45% to 74%. Air pollution dropped and local businesses grew. In the US,
It's
many of the barriers
crazy.
are baked into law. Zoning rules often keep housing far from stores or schools. Street width minimums and parking requirements make it difficult to retrofit neighborhoods for walking. And when walkable areas do appear, they're often in wealthy districts, treated more like amenities than infrastructure. Changing that won't be easy, but some cities are starting to face
Probably
that
that's why
challenge
they are
head
so
on.
fat.
New York City has converted parts of its busiest streets into pedestrian plazas. Times Square, once packed with cars, now has lawn chairs, bike lanes, and space for people to move. In San Francisco, neighborhoods like the Tenderloin have adopted a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit, added raised crosswalks, and cut down on vehicle lanes to make walking safer. Boston has started removing parking minimums for new developments, giving builders more freedom to design housing without carving out space for cars. Other cities are testing ideas inspired by Europe. In Seattle, home zones are being rolled out in residential areas, where local traffic is slowed down with speed humps, chicanes, and painted street art, similar to the shared space logic of Dutch Woonerfs. In Minneapolis, entire stretches of downtown have been redesigned to prioritize walking, biking, and transit over cars. These aren't just small adjustments, they're signs of a mindset shift. Each of these changes shows what's possible when a city starts to value safety, health, and community more than just traffic flow. But right now, they're still the exception, not the rule. And the bigger question remains, will these scattered efforts turn into a national movement, or will they stay isolated experiments? That answer depends on what cities choose to prioritize next. In the past few
That's a shame.
decades, Europe didn't just make its streets safer, it redefined what safety could look like. But roads are only part of the picture. Inside your car, another silent transformation was happening. Because for years, airbags were doing the exact opposite of what they were supposed
Yeah, so this was a very interesting comparisons. I think that in America they are still prioritizing mostly cars instead of all the people, even pedestrians, bicycle, whatever people want to use. And it's crazy because everything just went up, all the prices for cars, for gas, for maintenance, and it's not that easy anymore to own a car and to maintain it to be safe on the road. And that's happening all over the place. But the difference it is that at least in Europe you can still have to choose, even like either you're going with car if you have one, but it's not that necessary. You can go with the public transportation and you can reach basically most of the places. Probably the most difficult will be in case that you will need to go to buy some groceries or everything like that, something heavy that you cannot carry with the public transportation, and then you might need a car. Or if you enjoy to drive, maybe you wanna take jump in the car and take a drive or calm yourself down. So yeah, that's a huge difference because in Europe you're not that dependable on a car. In America or Canada, basically, if you don't have a car, you're like without legs. Completely different. I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I did. It's very informative. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow me on social media, and this was from a channel called Save by Design. See you in the next one.